Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I saw a quote the other day from Wendell Berry, who's an American poet and novelist and environmental activist. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. When I heard that, it's such a sense of there is a lot in that small number of words. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. The kind of though implies that the facts aren't always what you would consider something that would lead to joy. That sometimes the facts are very painful or inconvenient or unfair, or sometimes they're a predicament that can't be solved. You know, sometimes the facts isn't just a problem that you can solve. Sometimes the facts indicate that we're in a predicament of which there's going to be no positive outcome, no good outcome in the conventional sense, no good outcome in the conventional sense. So be joyful even though you've considered all the facts. And also the word considered implies a measured attention to the facts. You know, you've considered them, you've looked at them, you've considered them. So you haven't kind of gone, oh yeah, all right, that's too much, I can't go there. You've considered the facts, you've been willing to consider the fact of the matter, whatever that might be. Each of us tends to have an area of interest in life. You know, for me, I often think about environmental things. So climate change has been sort of fairly a strong theme in my adult life. In the early days, it was more to do with overusing resources and sort of overshoot, that kind of concept. We're cutting down too many trees, we're destroying too many habitats, we're fishing too many fish. And then as the years went on, it became not just that, but actually we're altering the whole global climate, which is going to have rippling effects that we can't even begin to properly map and track. We'll keep getting surprises. So that for me would be probably what I would consider, how do I be joyful though I have considered these facts? And then, you know, for other people, and also for myself as well, but for other people the emphasis might be more on sort of social injustices, inequalities in life. And there's, you know, infinite examples of injustices in this world. And then for other people, the emphasis might be more just on one's kind of familial circle or one's community circle, and being aware of the facts in relation to that circle. People having illnesses, people not getting on with each other, relationships breaking up, jobs getting lost, and so on. And all the good facts as well. But it's pretty easy to be joyful around the good stuff. It's the being joyful though we've considered all the facts. So I think it's really wonderful, this idea of that it's possible to be joyful without having to sort of cut off the negative things. We don't have to just put a wall up and go like, oh, can't think about that or it'll ruin my day. It is possible to hold all of the injustices and all of the mortalities and all the things that come with impermanence, the failings of our own body and so on. There's a way to be joyful with all of that. This is what Wendell Berry is saying. Not just that you can be, but an encouragement. Do be that. Be joyful, though you've considered all the facts. And then we also have a really different teaching. Well, it seems like it's different. It's not really, but it seems like it is. Where Suzuki Roshi says in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, because we enjoy all aspects of life as an unfolding of big mind, we do not care for any excessive joy, so we have imperturbable composure. This is saying something a little bit different. We don't care for excessive joy. So I guess the question could be, well, what's the difference between being joyful and excessive joy? What would excessive joy be like, and why might that be a caution not to have excessive joy? And the word sort of joy and happiness can kind of be used interchangeably, but I tend to distinguish, as a lot of people do, to think of happiness as more related to a positive frame of mind, because what's happening is positive. What's happening, you're happy because things are going well for you, or it's a sort of a sympathetic happiness. You're happy for someone else because things are going well for them. So, we're happy because of things in the physical world going in the direction that we would like for ourselves and for others. We often think of happiness as more related to that, and then sadness or anxiety or fear or any of those other sorts of emotions that are sort of opposite to happiness, to be when things are not going well. So I think that's a fairly useful way to think about happiness. And so maybe we could think of Suzuki Roshi there saying something more along the lines as, we don't care for excessive happiness, because if our happiness is dependent on conditions, those conditions are always going to change. They're inevitably going to go from good to not good, and from not good to good. It's just the flow of life, that things throughout the course of our day. If we just think of something as simple as hunger and going to the bathroom, we move constantly between needing food, then needing to go to the bathroom, then we need food again, we need to go to the bathroom again. Like, it just goes on for our whole life. From a little tiny baby to the day we die, we're having this good, bad type undulation that's going around food and, nutrition for the body and energy for the body. Taking in the good and expelling the waste. It just never ends for a whole life. So we don't want to have a happiness that's kind of moving with that kind of rhythm. You can see how problematic that would be. So joy, we could think of joy as something a little different to that it's more not dependent on conditions going in a particular way, but just joyful because, just because things exist. Not because they're existing for our benefit particularly, or going in the way we particularly want to, but just joy because we have awareness. And if we have the capacity to see and the capacity to hear and the capacity to feel, we're joyful just because we have that capacity, whatever our capacities are. That we can walk on our legs if we're able to do that. That we can talk to people if we're able to do that. Just a joy because we have senses that can interact with the world. That is a very different thing, because we pretty much always have that to varying degrees. I mean, as we get older or as we get illnesses, or have injuries, sometimes we lose some of our senses, for sure. But until we actually die, we usually have got some sense faculties that are working. And so we could just be joyful because of that. And that is very different, and that is stable. That is completely stable. Whereas happiness is obviously, happiness based on conditions is very unstable. So often in our teachings we have these, what feel like contradictory statements, one saying be joyful, and then one saying we're not attached to excessive joy. And Suzuki Roshi does a lovely way of sort of explaining, if I can, maybe did I mark the page? No, I might not have marked the page, and then I'm going to have to, here it is. He does a wonderful way of explaining how in Zen we say one thing and then we say the opposite thing. And they seem to be contradictory, but they're not. So this is the chapter on negative and positive. When we talk about our way, there is apt to be some misunderstanding because the true way always has at least two sides, the negative and the positive. When we talk about the negative side, the positive side is missing. And when we talk about the positive side, the negative side is missing. We cannot speak in a positive and a negative way at the same time. So we do not know what to say. It's almost impossible to talk about Buddhism. So not to say anything, just to practice is the best way. Showing one finger or drawing a round circle may be the way, or simply to bow. So here when he talks about the positive side and the negative side, he's not really referring to positive and negative as in good and bad experiences in the conventional sense we think of positive and negative. The positive side is the side of forms and appearances, like things and people and thoughts, things that we can see or feel or track in some way. They're the positive side. And then the negative side is the unbound, unborn, what we think of, what we say, the empty side, where there is no line between the beginning and the end of anything. So there's the positive side is Neti, and the negative side is I'm made of everything other than myself. I can't find myself. There's no beginning or end to me, or to anyone else, or to anything. That's the negative side. So it's not negative as a negative connotation. Both of these are equally positive. In Zen, the positive side and the negative side are two sides of the same coin, and we love that coin. We love that coin. We love both sides of that coin, the form and the empty side of the coin. But we can only speak, just because of language, we can only speak from the conventional side, the positive side, or from the empty side, the ultimate side, the negative side. We can only speak one side at a time. It's just the way our language works. So that's why we hear teachings that sound like they're saying the opposite thing to each other. And all it is this: one is speaking to one side and one is speaking to the other side in that moment. And our job is not to forget the both sides, to hold the both sides. So Wendell Berry's encouraging us here to be joyful, even though we've considered all the facts. And Suzuki Roshi is reminding us, don't get caught in excessive joy. And a nice little side point in terms of just practicing becoming more steady, I found, when I was younger, I definitely had much more peaks and troughs. I remember once I decided to keep a record. I marked so many points across the day, maybe 6 points across the day, and then would put on a scale of 0 to 10 how happy or sad I was, 10 being happy and 0 being very unhappy. And I would mark that, and I did that for maybe a year. And it was kind of disturbing to see how much, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And wasn't a very good experiment, and of course the experiment affected my mood because I didn't want to be putting too many low points, so I tried to keep myself, as I got closer to the hour, tried to cheer myself up. But anyway, the point being, I really noticed how much my life was going up and down across the course of a day and over the days and weeks, but what was kind of consistent was the up and down. And then as I began practicing more, one of the entry points that I found helpful was to work on not getting too happy when things went well, rather than, I think, what we would normally think of doing, don't get so upset when things go badly. I practiced doing the other side first. Try, when something goes well, to be more measured, just a little more measured. It was very helpful because I was able to do that. Someone might say something nice to me, and instead of going like, oh wow, thanks, I go, oh, thank you. Just took it down a notch. And as I practiced doing that, not getting too happy about something, then I was able to kind of spontaneously, in a mirror image, become a little less upset when things went badly. So you might want to try that in your own life. You probably already have, but you could, if it's helpful to think about it that way. And that way, we still are happy, and like I still am happy and sad about just things, of course, but we can have this happy and sad being a little less extreme, and then running all the way through it. Like sometimes in Buddhism it talks like an arrow that skewers us all the way through. There's an arrow, there's a joy that penetrates all the way through. So even when something really bad happens and we're appropriately very upset by it, appropriately so, there is still at the same time, we might be, oh my God, that's so terrible, but a little part of us goes, ooh, look at that, at the same time. The other day I was sitting in the Molonglo. I was in the Molonglo River, and I was actually sitting on a little island of rocks with my feet in the water, and I was thinking about my son. So I was sort of thinking about, his difficulties that he's having, and I wasn't particularly sad. I was just kind of going over the things that have happened to him over the last few years. And as I was doing that, suddenly something bit my toe, and I just jumped, and it was a yabby. A yabby had bitten my toe, and I was just so happy. It's like, and then I got very still so that the water would settle, and then I watched that little yabby. It's like, where did that thing go? And it was moving about. They moved kind of slowly. It was moving about, trying to find that yummy thing that had just like, there was something so good there a moment ago. Now it's gone, And so it was a very interesting little moment for me to have this real happiness at being bitten by a yabby, and also, contemplating what's happening with my son, which is kind of a bit serious. And so that's kind of like the joy just going through. So that's what we're wanting to cultivate as practitioners too. And you see this, I think often we hear about people in very difficult situations having a joy in life, and it's a genuine joy because it's not dependent on conditions. It's just dependent on being aware of what's ever in front of us, and being able to be joyful about that. Because it's all of us. We're all in this together, Sorry, my phone is on silent, but my laptop obviously is pinging a little bit. There was one more thing. I've got time to read one more thing. This is a book of Norman Fisher's The World Could Be Otherwise, on the Bodhisattva path. And there's just a nice thing about joy in here. One of the paramitas is right effort, effort, energy, vitality, and here it's translated as joyful effort. So it's just a couple of paragraphs here. The Bodhisattva commitment is endless. The Bodhisattva job goes on, and the Bodhisattva's love and desire to be of service to others is limitless. In order to keep on with this work, bodhisattvas practice the perfection of joyful effort. It's impossible to be a bodhisattva without lots of energy, and you can't have lots of energy without limitless love for what you do. Bodhisattvas are like the Buddhist pop-up dolls you see in Japan. The dolls are in the shape of Bodhidharma, the legendary Central Asian monk who brought Buddhism to China and is therefore credited as the founder of Zen. You can whack these big round inflatable dolls, knocking them over, but they pop right back up. The energy of the knockdown provides the energy of the pop-up. No energy is lost. For bodhisattvas, getting knocked down is already getting up. Knock down, get up, one motion. Bodhisattvas just keep on going, but their effort isn't wooden or mechanical, it's effervescent. They love to do spiritual practice in all its endless varieties and forms for the benefit of self and others, and they go on doing it no matter what. They simply couldn't do otherwise. Bodhisattvas' impossible to defeat energy comes from their practice of joyful effort. I think we often see this too in mature practitioners, that they have a vitality and an energy. They still get tired, especially as they get older they get tired, but they have a vitality to them. I think it's this joy, this joyfulness that is energizing. There's just a couple of other quotes from Wendell-Berry. The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. I just like that because he says pleasing. It's our pleasing responsibility. It's not a begrudging responsibility, like, oh my God, got to go and save the elephants. It's not like that. You know, it's a pleasing responsibility. I want to go out there and whatever it is that we do. The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. And then another one. Love the world, work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who doesn't deserve it. So love the world, work for nothing. So it's that kind of not having an ulterior motive. You're just doing it. You're just working for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor, I think, is a very interesting line. Take all that you have and be poor. In a sense, we already have so much. We don't need any more. So in that sense, we're happy to just have what we have. Not thinking about wealth in the conventional sense at all. Love someone who doesn't deserve it. It's a nice way of the way we talk about our care for all beings is unconditional. They don't have to reward us, and they don't have to become better people or anything like that. We just care about them anyway, even if they're just going to even if they're going to be problematic for every moment of their life, we still love them. We still care about them. All right. Would anyone like to comment or ask a question? Jisen.
A question. I'm interested in this word consider that Wendell-Berry has used, and I wonder how you consider the word consider.
I guess I'm thinking of it as a kind of open-hearted contemplation of something. So when I hear something, Can I be open and receptive to whatever I'm hearing or reading or seeing, and consider it without cutting it off? I think a lot of us have got our own mental habits where at a certain point we just don't want to know anymore, and we just sort of cut it off at that point and don't let ourselves take something in. So I think to consider is to be willing to take something in, even if it's a little challenging and uncomfortable. I think a good example is when people give feedback to parents about their parenting. Often parents find it very hard to receive feedback. They really just don't want to receive it mostly. Or maybe they do, but it is definitely difficult to receive feedback. So to fully consider would be able to receive something like that. But even things like when I use the word predicament, when a problem can't be solved, sometimes learning about it when you know there's no solution is hard. It's hard to consider it and give it the energy and the space that it needs so you can really take in the implications of it when you know you can't solve it, because it's just beyond solving. It's a predicament. What are your thoughts about it?
Just building on what you're saying, I think, in sitting with the things that are difficult to take in, um, for me, it's like noticing what it is that's coming up. What is it in me that is defending myself, that is that finds whatever it is that I'm sitting with edgy. Like, what's that edge about? Why do I need to protect myself from taking it in? And who am I? Who am I that is protecting something, whatever that may be? And then just like being able to take a step back, like Suzuki Roshi's saying about big mind. So that this body is a space in which things are felt. Consideration is a felt experience rather than a head experience. So it's like a transition from head to body, something like that.
Yeah. Actually, that just reminds me that I had this experience yesterday where someone asked me about wanting to do something, and I kind of had a constriction, like, no, I don't really like that idea, and I felt a bit resistant to it. And then I went for a long run, and while I was running, it suddenly dawned on me, like, you don't have to have resistance to that idea, why don't you just embrace it? And I felt so much better. And I didn't, it just came spontaneously through the body. And then I was able to go back to that person and say, no, that's a great idea. I totally support you with that idea. Go ahead with that idea. Because my resistance was actually just a slightly, I don't know, not being open to change or something like that. There was, so that word consider, it's there, though you have considered all the facts. While I was exercising, part of my psyche was able to be considering, like I knew there was something a little not quite right in my resistance. I could feel it, it's subtle, it wasn't a big deal, but it was just there. And then I was able to go like, oh yeah, that is actually just my resistance. It's not the suggestion. The suggestion is fine. It's my resistance to the suggestion that is the issue here. And I could let go of that resistance because the actual suggestion is quite a good one. So I think there's just, sometimes it's very little things like that, and then other times it's much bigger things. But if we keep ourselves kind of receptive all the time whenever we hear anything, see anything, just try not to have too many of our own blinkers narrowing our vision, just try to, as best as we can, keep it as wide as possible. Then we can be joyful, even though we have considered all the facts.
And I just want to take the other side too, in that sometimes if the resistance keeps coming up, to actually honour that too, because sometimes that's important.
Right,
the two truths.
That's right. That's part of the consideration, isn't it? Yeah. Considering the whole thing. Yeah. Fee. Just pass this over.
Thanks, Jacinth. Yeah, and I'm thinking too, the empty side of like, consider all the facts. Like after you've considered all the facts, like just that, it might be that none of it is true. Like, you've considered all the facts and be joyful. Like what I think in my mind is, can be, just. I think I'm stating the obvious in the Zen group, but not really worth listening to. Yeah.
In that sense, we can be joyful at our own foolishness.
Don't rob yourself of joy.
Yeah, we can notice that sometimes we take our own thoughts too seriously and take them to be true, as if they're actually totally true, and then we can laugh at ourselves for doing that in a nice way, in a joyful way. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll finish there.
Mushin, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us Dharma talks every week. It's just how lucky we are. I just want to appreciate that.
Right, we'll do our chanting and then do some bowing.